Okay, this is the first podcast on Chapter 7. We're going to be looking at flexible budgets and we'll be looking at variances and management control. So, static budgets and flexible budgets will be focused on in this chapter. We'll be looking at the use of variances. We'll be looking at price variances and efficiency variances. We'll understand how managers use variances, and then we'll go ahead and look at how variances are used for benchmarking. Okay, some basic concepts that you should be aware of. First of all, a variance is the difference between actual results versus expected or budgeted performance. So actual versus budgeted. Management by exception is the practice of focusing your attention on an area that's not operating as expected. So again, it's focusing on why we have variances of actual versus budget. A static master budget is based on the level of output planned at the start of the budget period, what we forecast our output to be. And a static budget variance then is the difference between the actual result and the corresponding static budgeted amount. A favorable variance has the effect of increasing operating income relative to the budget amount. It means that we made more in operating income versus what we budgeted. That's good. An unfavorable variance has the effect of decreasing operating income relative to the budgeted amount. It means that we budgeted too much income versus what we actually had. So that wouldn't be as good. Variances can start out at the top level with a level 0 analysis that provides the least amount of detail, and then we can go into different levels which will provide more and more detailed levels of analysis. So we're going to show what a level 0 and level 1 detailed analysis looks like. Okay, a 0 level analysis basically says we have some kind of variance, a variance of actual versus budgeted. When we get down to the level 1 analysis, we can focus on what our operating income variance is. And what we'll see is that we forecasted our actual results of operating income of $14,900, but our static budget was for operating income of $108,000. So our level 1 analysis then says that our static budget variance, the difference between the $14,900 and the $108,000, well, that gives us an unfavorable variance of $93,100. We actually forecasted more operating income than what we produced, so that's an unfavorable variance. Okay, so when we look at flexible budgets, then they will calculate budgeted revenues and budgeted costs based on the actual output in the budget period. So that's important. Flexible budgets will always work with actual output. The flexible budget is prepared at the end of the period because that's when we know what our actual output for the period is. And the flexible budget can be thought of as the hypothetical budget that would have been prepared at the start of the period if the company had correctly forecast what its actual output for the period was. Again, we don't know what our output is for the period until that period ends. So doing a flexible budget is sometimes referred to as flexing. In a flexible budget, then, the selling price will be the same as the static budget. The budgeted unit variable cost is the same, and it's going to be whatever it is within that relevant range, and total fixed costs are the same. So again, we're going to be using actual output, and then we're going to be working with all of our budgeted costs for the flexible budget. So again, budgeted unit variable costs, budgeted fixed costs, and so on, but we're going to be working with actual output. That's important, and I highlighted that in this slide again. So working with the actual quantity of output and then multiplying it by all the budgeted costs. Okay, now if we get to a level 2 analysis, we can go ahead and break down that level 1 analysis, that static budget variance of unfavorable $93,100 operating income. We could break that down into 2 separate variances. The first one is going to be our sales volume variance. That's the difference between our flexible budget operating income and our static budget operating income, and that will give us $64,000 unfavorable. Our flexible budget variance is the difference between our actual results and our flexible budget. So the difference between the 14,900 and the 44,000. That gives us an unfavorable variance of 29,100. Now, if you were to add the flexible budget variance plus the sales volume variance, so add the 29,100 plus the 64,000, that would give you the level 1 variance, the static budget variance of 93,100. So again, the sales volume variance will go ahead and focus solely on the difference between the actual volume and the budgeted volume. So here, we forecasted that we were going to sell 12,000 coats or jackets, but we only sold 10,000 jackets. So that's a difference of 2,000. What caused that $2,000 difference? Well, some possible reasons that might be the reason why we incurred this unfavorable sales volume variance is that maybe we just failed to execute the sales plan. Maybe we had weaker than anticipated demand. We could have had more aggressive competitors taking market share. We could have had an unanticipated market preference away from the product. There was another product that was more popular among consumers. So 1 through 4, this is something that the sales manager would have to focus on. If there were quality problems in the jacket, that is something that the manufacturing manager would have to focus on. So again, these are just some possible reasons. There could have been other reasons as well. Okay, why don't we go ahead and end the first podcast here.